right. We do this every Sunday since this COVID time that we started live streaming, and we want to get to know each other a little bit as a congregation. We want to share a little bit about our lives, and so today I have Sandra with me. And so Sandra, I sent her some questions in advance so she could get ready. I think she wrote some stuff down, but we'll just kind of chat for a bit, and we hope that we can get to know each other on a deeper level. So Sandra, let's start. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Do you have kids, husband, all that kind of stuff, you know?
Yes, I'm married. I have 2 teenage boys and 3 dogs in my house.
That's a lot.
Yep. And I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I do off and on help my husband at his business when they need extra help. Right.
So one of the things that I know about you is you grew up in this church. Your parents went to this church. You grew up here. I just wanted to talk to me a little bit about how your faith maybe became your own. You know, how did you own it? When did it move from being a faith of your parents to your own faith? Did you have any faith crisis, or was it just kind of a smooth transition? Just a little bit like that.
So yes, I did grow up in this church, and I was always very involved in the music program. But something always held me back from making a full, true commitment. My husband is not a Christian.
Right.
So with most families, you know, husband and wife, sometimes if one of them doesn't feel like going to church, there's that accountability. The other one's usually there then to support and say, no, you know, let's go. And I didn't have that, so it was all on me. So slowly over time, I went less and less. And then I stopped going to specifically communion services because it was awkward for me. Everybody assumed I was baptized, but I wasn't. So then it came to, you know, they would pass it to me and then be surprised when I didn't take, or they would rudely like pass it over me, like I shouldn't touch it because I'm not baptized, right? So, and then there was also like a 5-year period that's kind of a blur. It was after the birth of our second son. He has a medical condition. So the first 5 years were super tough. We were in the hospital a lot, and I've blocked out a lot of that time in my life when I try and think back. So I don't remember going to church a lot during that time. But then there's this one Sunday, 8 years ago, I came to church, and the sermon that the pastor at the time was preaching really spoke to me. And then, it was about, you know, people waiting to make a commitment, and it was like he's talking to me.
Interesting.
And then, because I always thought that I had to be a better Christian before I got baptized. So that was kind of, I guess, what was holding me back. I didn't think I was good enough. And then I started having regular meetings with the pastor, and it opened my eyes to the truth and opened my heart. And then I was finally able to let Jesus in completely. And then I got baptized at the age of 37, which is late in life for somebody that's gone to church their whole life, but I'm still learning and growing in my faith.
I really love, I think part of what was kind of implied here is that you had to move from feeling like you were not good enough to saying, it's about Jesus. It's not about who I am to come to him, because he's already offered all of this to me.
That's right.
Regardless of who I am. Thank you for sharing that. The other question that I had, how have you experienced God in your life? And maybe you kind of have answered that already with your story. Maybe not, but I will ask you that question anyways. How have you experienced God in your life? And I ask that because I think sometimes we assume that God just has to kind of like speak as that voice from heaven. And yet there's little things in our lives where God is present. So I'm just wondering if you have anything that you could share on that.
I didn't really know how to answer that question. But yeah, I didn't have a big God moment. I think it's just, for me, it's certain people he puts in my life, and he He speaks to me through music.
Right.
Songs can move me, and I honestly think that, like, as coming back to the church after being gone, it was, I missed being in choir, and I missed the singing, I missed all of that, because I always felt closer to God when I was doing that. So he speaks to me that way, and that's kind of what brought me back.
Very, very nice. Thank you for sharing that. So the last question that I have is kind of the question that we have to ask every Sunday because of the times that we live in. How are you feeling these days? Are you anxious about this COVID thing? How are you dealing with it? How are you dealing with it as a family? What's it doing in your life?
I'm not overly anxious about it, to be honest. This is the third time I've left my house in 3 weeks. So, I mean, my husband goes to work and comes back, and he does the grocery shopping. Right. So we're mostly home. So I'm not really scared of catching it. Right. I'm more scared of, or not scared, but concerned how I'm going to deal with having my children home and homeschooling them for an extended period of time. One of us might not survive it. Right. But no, that's really hasn't affected me a lot. Right. Yeah, the whole being with the kids at home, I think, is a sanctifying time for a lot of parents during this time. I've been talking to some of our neighbors about that too, so I appreciate you sharing about that, and I thank you for sharing this, Sandra, and I thank you for all the help that you give us. So I want to pray for you, and then we will sing another song, I believe. So yeah, let's pray. God, I thank you for Sandra, and I thank you for her children and her husband. I thank you for the work you've done in her life. Lord, I thank you for that Sunday 8 years ago where she heard you speak to her through what the pastor was saying. And I thank you that it's not about us having to be good enough so that you accept us, but it's about your grace given to us, that we don't have to be good enough. We just have to be willing to be in a relationship with you, and you work in us and through us. And so I thank you for that testimony of faith. And Lord, I just pray that you would continue to bless Sandra as she teaches her children at home. I pray that you would give patience. I pray that the family could grow closer together, even through some conflicts and teaching and wanting to learn or not wanting to learn. And I just pray that you would just give them your richest blessing during this time, and that you would protect their health. I pray all of this in your name. Amen.